life is a spiritual experience, and spirit source moves through literally everything. Source can send you messages through your cards and your clairvoyance and your dreams and your partner and that random person at the grocery store and a billboard that you drive by and something on social media. Like, there are a million ways messages are coming through all the time. Your frequency, your intentions, the questions you are living in, what you're aligned with, is sending out a vibrational signal, and your reality changes code to reflect answers and that signal itself back to you. Always. So a lot of you know that one of my favorite ways to get messages from spirit, my higher self, the universe, is through movies. I'm a big movie girl. I'm a big television girl. I studied film and TV in college along with psychology. I've just always loved movies, and it's been a way that spirit has given me messages since I was a kid. And I had a really cool synchronicity happen the other day that I want to tell you about. This was like 2 nights ago. So when I was really little, I remember, again, spirit would always give me messages through movies, and spirit would tell me, my guides would tell me, you need to watch this movie or that movie. And often what would happen is I would go to Blockbuster with my parents. They would take me every weekend, and my guides would just literally guide me to the movie to get. And there was, I forget how old I was. I should look this up, what year it was. I don't know, but I was a kid, and this movie had come out, and my guides, I was at home, and they're like, this movie came out, and they showed me an image psychically, clairvoyantly, of the cover of the DVD, and they're like, you have to go this weekend and you have to watch it. And I went to Blockbuster with my parents, and I'm a little kid, right? And I find it. It's right there. It's in like the popular section. I don't know. I remember walking in there, and it was pretty close in front. And I go, that's it. And I walk over and I go, I need this. And my dad is like, that's a grown-up movie. You can't watch it. Why don't you go rent, like Rapunzel or some shit? And I was like, no, I have to watch it. So I kept pushing, and I got my way and rented it. And I remember going home, and I watched this movie 80 times. Like, I just watched it again and again and again. And I remember how I felt while I watched it. I remember crying while I watched it. I remember having a lot of weird feelings while I watched it. I remember feeling this feeling of how important it was, but I was so young, I didn't really understand it. Like, I just didn't understand it because I was a kid. But I knew it was important, and I was getting whatever the vibration was, and I just knew I was supposed to watch it. And I remember, like a year later, I would rent it again, and I would watch it a ton of times. And I didn't know why it was so important or why I wanted to watch it. And honestly, every time it made me like really sad, but I knew I needed to watch it. And as I got older, I like forgot about this movie, and every once in a while I'll see a scene kind of blurrily flash in my head from the movie, and I always think I need to find that movie, but I didn't know what it was. Like, I knew the scenes, but I was so young when I first watched it, I didn't remember any actors or actresses in it. Like, I didn't know how to figure it out, and I remember I searched a couple times, but I couldn't figure it out. I honestly didn't even remember what the plot was as I got older. And then a couple nights ago, 2 nights ago, I open up my Netflix, as I do most nights, and it says under the, continued watching section, a list of movies, all of which I have been watching, except one, the most recent one, and it was the movie. It was on there, halfway watched. Life or Something Like It. If you haven't seen this movie, you should watch it. It's with Angelina Jolie. There's like a lot of famous people in it, but again, when I first saw this, I didn't know I didn't know actors or actresses' names. I was such a kid, and I was like a little kid, and I saw it, and my heart stopped, and I go, oh my God, that's the movie. And also, I wonder who is watching this on my Netflix, my spirit guides. So clearly it was a sign I need to watch it. I had literally forgotten about this movie. I didn't even know it was on Netflix, and I was like, I gotta watch it. So I started over from the beginning. I haven't finished it yet. I watched maybe like a quarter of it, and I'm waiting for the moment of, I'm sure wherever they left off, because it was left off at like an hour, 13 minutes is like the important piece, but I just wanted to watch it the whole way through. And as I'm watching it, it's Angelina Jolie, and the premise is she is this news reporter, news anchor, really popular, pretty blonde, has this celebrity fiance, living her best life, and really just only cares about her image. And people are making comments to her like, all you care is how you look and being Miss Perfect and blah, blah, blah. And she wants a promotion, and her promotion requires her, sorry, I'm giving away like the main plot, but whatever. Don't listen to this if you don't want to know the plot. This all happens within the first like 15 minutes. She wants a promotion, and to get that, she starts doing field reporting, and she goes out into the street to interview this guy who stands out on the street. This takes place in Seattle, and he's like standing out in the street on these busy city streets, and he's standing on like a box or something, giving prophecies. And he's like, I'm a prophet, and he just is yelling. And people are just walking by, overlooking this man, right? He's dressed in like this, I think like a brown jacket, and just looks like some random person on the street. It looks like, I grew up outside of San Francisco, and I'm like, yeah, all kinds of people in San Francisco are doing that stuff. They're just on boxes yelling stuff, and everyone's just walking by. But they're going to interview this guy because, some people are like, oh, this guy's real deal. And the guy is saying, I'm from a long line of prophets, and I have to stand on this box because it brings me higher. So I'm closer to I can hear God easier because I'm like a foot higher. And he's talking about how, being from a long line of prophets is it's difficult work to know these things, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. And she asks him, she's like, hey, like I don't really believe in this stuff, but I'm up for this promotion. Do you think I'm going to get it? Because she's pretty sure she's going to get it. And he's like, no. And he's really serious. And then she's interviewing him, and she's like, can you give me some, psychic predictions? And he says things like, tomorrow it's going to hail. And she's like, well, the weather reporters who track this is no hail on the menu for tomorrow. And then he's like, and on, the next day, the Seahawks are going to beat whoever they're playing 19-13. And like, he's saying these very specific things. And then he goes, and I'm sorry, but you're going to die on Thursday or something. And he's like, you're going to die. And she's like, what? This is live television. And actually, I don't know if it's live, but it's TV. And she gets really upset, obviously. And then over the next couple of days, she's watching as everything he says happens. Like the next morning, she wakes up and it's hailing. And then the next day, she's at the sports bar and she watches the game, and the Seahawks win with that same exact score. And now she's starting to freak out. And so the movie is, about this whole process of unraveling like what's important to you. And it's this whole concept of, if I think I'm going to die on Thursday, what would I do today? How am I going to live my life? And have I spent my whole life chasing something that doesn't really matter? And then I'm watching this back and I'm like, why is this coming up for me again? And I think, and I haven't even finished the movie, and there's going to be more in there for me, but I'm seeing how that whole kind of theme played out for me so intensely the first part of my life. And it was when I got really sick when I was in college. Like I had that moment because my doctors were like literally telling me they didn't think I was going to make it. And they're like, you might have a couple of months left if your organs keep shutting down this way. Like I literally thought I was going to die, and I changed my whole attitude on everything. And I had this very humbling moment with myself where I realized everything I prioritized and all I cared about was what everybody else thought about me, and following a path that I thought other people would think was good enough or successful. And it changed every part of my personality. And when you think, oh my God, if I only have a month or 2 months, I mean, imagine it being Thursday, what are you going to do? And so I changed the way I lived my life because I genuinely didn't know. And it just put everything into really intense perspective for me. And that's like, kind of the same lesson that's coming up in this movie. And I'm like, oh my God, my guides are pummeling me with this movie when I was young, almost as like vibrational preparation for this huge theme that was going to play out the first part of my life. But then there's this other dynamic of, or I'm watching it now, of this prophet, this guy with psychic abilities, and then this woman, receiving that message. And how do you navigate that? Like, how do you hold that information as somebody who receives it / somebody who, is told it, like on the woman's side, but also on the prophet, this guy's side? Like, how do you deal with that? And it's been something that I have navigated myself with my own boundaries, with what I channel, with what spirit tells me. And over the last couple of months, I felt as, I'm always kind of checking the pulse on how do my gifts want to be used right now. Spirit, how do you want to move through me right now? How can I be of highest service? And that changes, and that will continue to change throughout my life. But I had this experience that like kind of bothered me. Well, I don't want to say bothered me, but my boundaries with my gifts have been for a long time. If I can't do anything to change it, don't tell me. Like, there are just some things I don't want to know. There are just some things I don't want to tap into. And when I was young and I had no training, I had no boundaries, I didn't know what I was doing, I had really intense, I don't even know what it would be diagnosed as, because when I was that little, I didn't have a diagnosis, but I had very intense paranoia. Like, this is the best way I can describe it. I really, really struggled because I would know things were going to happen in advance. I was extremely aware of people's negative thoughts, people's creepy thoughts. Like, I really struggled. My mental health struggled. I was paranoid all the time. I always thought like someone was going to kill me. Like, it was just very intense because I didn't know how to handle everything I was receiving, and I had no boundaries. And when I finally figured out how to create boundaries with that, it gave me my life back because I wasn't paranoid all the time anymore. I could actually be present and enjoy my life. And I had, when was this? Like a week and a half ago as I'm recording this, but I was sitting down for meditation, and my guides, I was like, what do I need to know? And my guides were like, there's going to be massive earthquakes and thousands of people are going to die. And I was like, what? Like, this is not what? Like, I was so taken aback because I was thinking they're going to tell me like, you should wake up earlier. Like, I was not thinking in that direction. And they tell me that. And I'm like, that's not usually the kind of information I ask or I want to receive, because I can't do anything about it. And that's why I had so much paranoia when I was young, because I would know things were going to happen that I couldn't change. And I was like, what do I do with that? And they're like, nothing. And I was like, okay, maybe that was a fluke, And then I saw that, it was a couple days later in Thailand, they had that huge earthquake and thousands of people died. And just the devastation, which I think a lot of people like don't even know about, because I feel like there's a lot to hide that. And my stomach dropped, and I was like, oh my God. And then we were flying home from the Bay Area, and there was an earthquake in San Diego. And I'm like, oh my God, are there all these earthquakes now? Like, I just got this message, and I was getting kind of like, ugh. And at the same time, when I was in the Bay Area, just because of some of the ways that my gifts have turned on recently, I was a lot more aware of things that I usually boundary out. And I was feeling kind of some of that paranoia I felt as a child. We're flying in and out of Oakland, and like, there's a lot of weird stuff going on over there, and I'm aware of everything. And I was like, I don't like this. Let's put up the walls again. And so I was already kind of navigating these thoughts within myself. And then I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, this is literally exemplifying like, the pros and the cons and this dilemma that you have when you have psychic information. And what is it like to have information that you don't like, and you can't change? Like, do you want that? It's exploring that whole dilemma. And I haven't even finished watching it, but I'm sure there's going to be more for me in that. But I was with one of my friends recently, and she was like, you always post about movie codes and I don't really understand what you mean. I was like, what do you mean you don't understand what I mean? And she's like, I don't really understand what you mean. Like, how do you find the code? And, I realized in her asking this question, I was like, wait, do you guys not know what I mean? And so I'm telling you that story because this is like something that this kind of message or how this spiritual information comes through for me in that way. This happens to me like 6 times a week. Like, that's why I watch so many movies, because in meditation, while I'm driving, I'll be out with somebody. Sometimes people will tell me you should watch this movie, but usually a movie will pop into my head and I'm like, oh, I got to watch that. And then I watch it and I get a message. And where the message or messages reside are sometimes in just the overall theme. Like, you might be watching the character arc, the hero's journey, the journey they're on, and you're paying attention to what are the lessons that they're learning? What are the dilemmas they're facing? What are the challenges they're facing? What are the dynamics they're chasing? And how does this relate to you? Sometimes it helps me with processing my emotions. Like, there's a lot of movies, movies are playing out archetypes, and archetypes hold information about the collective consciousness and who we all are, right? Like, we can all relate to archetypes in different ways. We all have different archetypes that we lean into more than others, but these are played out in stories. That's why stories are so important and helpful for us to understand ourselves, to see our shadow, to learn how to overcome things. We can see ourselves in other people. We can see how we can step into our highest selves. Like, what's the highest level of that archetype? Think about any hero's journey. Think about a Marvel movie or a superhero movie, and think about, fighting light versus dark. Think about Star Wars. Am I choosing the light or am I choosing the dark? Am I choosing love or fear? Am I a villain or a hero? All the things that a hero moves through in their life. It's like we can peel apart all of these themes, all of these experiences, all of these emotions, and find ourselves in those characters. And that can give us some outside perspective and some insight about, like, how do I want to move forward with this? Or can this give me a perspective or an answer that I couldn't previously see without it being on the page in front of me or on the screen in front of me? And that's one of the many values of movies. But the storylines that are played out, every movie is the same storyline, same thing, right? The way that a plot builds and untangles, it's all the same. Archetypes are all speaking to ideas, information, characters that are universal. And that's what is so powerful about it, is like you can find yourself in any story somewhere. So you're looking at what are the main themes that character is going through. You're looking at what are the emotions they're feeling. There might be a very specific dynamic they go through. So sometimes it's the movie overall that's the message. Sometimes it's one portion of it. Like, it's one scene. It's one aspect of it. It's just like one part of it. And you're like, oh, that's what's going on in my life right now. Sometimes it's one conversation. It could be a specific conversation and how that plays out. Sometimes it's one line. So sometimes I'm watching a movie and I'm just waiting for this feeling where it's a ping, and it will be like, it could be at the very end, it could be in the middle, and someone says something. It could be casually or it could be an important line in the movie, and my whole body is like, whoa, that was for me. And maybe the context of the movie has nothing to do with my life, or I'm not seeing any parallels there. But that sentence, if I took that sentence as a standalone sentence, that was a message from the divine to me. And that's why I had to watch that movie for that one sentence. And those are ways that I'm finding messages for me in movies. Now, movies are also holding codes because of those universal archetypes in storylines and plot lines, but also movies are speaking to us about truths that are not just about ourselves, but about the world and how it works, right? Movies, stories are speaking to aspects of the human condition. Again, those big themes of light versus dark and fear versus love. And when I'm talking about a lot of movie codes that I share with you guys, or movies that I think are great spiritual education, these are movies that are about what's reality. And are we in a simulation? What is the matrix? How do you break the matrix? How can you change your reality, change your experiences through your mind? I always say, it's all hidden in plain sight. And that's how Hollywood works. As somebody who went to school for this, like in Los Angeles, and is spiritually aware, you watch movies and you're like, holy shit, all the stuff that people think is fantasy or sci-fi or made up is literal. It's literally a key code. And the thing is that with the powers that be on this planet, the way it works, everything has to be told to us in plain sight. But what happens is people will tell us what they're going to do in plain sight and label it as fantasy or fake or, just not reality. Like The Matrix, the movie The Matrix, the documentary The Matrix. Like they're just telling us in plain sight. And then that is us giving permission, So there's nothing that's going on that's actually hidden, but we have to pay attention to what's labeled fake that's not. And on the other side, what's propaganda? You look at all of the movies about ETs and how there's so much propaganda basically setting people up to be afraid of ETs just for part of the agenda for them to one day, if something happens, they're going to try and blame the ETs when most of the ETs are just trying to help us. So there's a lot of conditioning and propaganda in movies, but there's a lot of deep spiritual truths about how this reality works, how this density works, things about manifestation, about intuition, about energetics. It's literally all in plain sight. And that's why I'm like, if you watch all of these movies, maybe I should make a list. Let me know if you want me to make a list. If I was like, this is your spiritual education, if you watch this and you take these movies as if they're documentaries, you will understand everything you need to know about spirituality, about how to hack the matrix, about your spiritual abilities, your intuitive abilities, about the larger agendas at play, about how things like government and big pharma work. It's all right there hidden in plain sight. So there are codes coming from so many different angles just about how the world works, and then also these individual codes. And this is where certain movies or themes might speak specifically to you. There are movies and themes and characters that I go back to again and again because throughout my life I'm on a certain frequency track of how, my soul frequency is playing out certain contracts and lessons that might be different than you. And so different movies might really hit home with you because they're speaking to things that are playing out within your soul frequency track that are different than mine. So that's one of the reasons why, I love movies. And what I was thinking about with this is there are so many times when people feel like their intuition isn't online. And people will come to me and they want to open up their clairaudience or their clairvoyance or whatever it is. And they'll say things like, I can't hear my intuition, or it's gotten really quiet. Or people who are used to feeling really intuitive, they might be going through a period where the senses, where it typically comes from or through, they'll feel like it's not working. I go through this all the time. There have been many phases of my life where my clairvoyance is off, which is my main gift. There have been times where it feels like everything is off, and the way that I'm receiving all of my messages is just through lifing, is through my external reality. And I bring this up because there are literally signs everywhere. So we can get intuitive messages, spiritual messages through our clairvoyance, our clairaudience, our claircognizance, our clairsentience, our smell, our taste, whatever, our knowing. We can get messages through other people, through conversations. Spirit works through other people. We can get messages through random things that come up on social media. We can get messages through movies and books and songs. We can get messages through just what life delivers to us. We just have a life experience. Things just happen. And I think a lot of times people are really depending on what they think of as their typical psychic senses, and they're not remembering that life is a spiritual experience, and spirit source moves through literally everything. Source can send you messages through your cards and your clairvoyance and your dreams and your partner and that random person at the grocery store and a billboard that you drive by and something on social media. There are a million ways messages are coming through all the time. Your frequency, your intentions, the questions you are living in, what you're aligned with is sending out a vibrational signal, and your reality changes code to reflect answers and that signal itself back to you. Always. Everything in your reality. And so what happens is people are moving through life and they're like, I can't hear my intuition. Is they're trying so hard to see it in their mind's eye. Meanwhile, every tarot card they're pulling, every oracle card they're pulling is saying the same thing. Every person they're talking to, the same theme is coming up. Everything they see on social media is giving the same message. Life is lifing and turning down opportunities and giving you opportunities that are more in alignment. And you're like, I'm not getting anything. It's literally right in front of you all the time. And I think that's really important to remember. And something I tell myself too, if I'm feeling like a little bit less connected, I'm like, well, I'm never disconnected. Like, I'm never disconnected. If I was disconnected, I literally wouldn't be here. I'm connected, and source is moving through literally everything and everyone. Let me keep my eyes open. There's literally an abundance of ways source can speak to me. So then I start to think about, what's been showing up in my reality? What movie have I felt like I wanted to watch? Like, so again, sometimes it comes through as a flash. Sometimes it comes through as a recommendation from someone. Sometimes it comes through like what just happened in the story I shared about. It just showed up on my continued watching list and no one was watching it. I promise no one was watching that on my Netflix. My spirit guides were. Sometimes it comes up just through like a feeling. I'm like, oh, I feel like I want to watch that. Sometimes I'm just going through my Disney Plus and my body's like, oh, that, like, I just feel an urge. I feel called to watch it. And it's the same thing with music. It's the same thing with books, right? Where I will feel this urge of, I just got to read this, or a book will keep kind of popping up in my mind. Or my reality, people are recommending it. It's coming up in some way. I've got to read it. There are messages in there for me. There's a message. And same thing with music. I'll wake up and a song is just playing in my head. I'm like, got to play it. There's a frequency in there for me. So with music, it's similar. There is a frequency transmission through the actual sound, right? Like sounds heal. Sounds are sending messages. So sometimes it's through the beat itself. Sometimes it's through the name of the song. Sometimes it's through a line in the song. Sometimes it's through like the feeling or sentiment in the song, right? The emotion that's being expressed. There's all kinds of things that can be the message for you, or even like the healer for you or the activator for you. But if I wake up and I feel the urge to play a song, I always play the song. And sometimes I'm like, oh, there's a message that I heard in that line. A lot of times I play it and I'm like, oh, that just like moved my energy. Like that was the exact frequency I needed to put my frequency in balance, right? And again, it's the same thing with books. It's the same thing with artwork. And so you pay attention to all of those urges and you just go into it. You feel it. You see where am I? Where do I see myself in what's in front of me? This book, this movie, this TV show, what themes are coming up that are important? What spiritual lessons are coming up? If I were to look at this or analyze this as an outside observer, what would I say are the things that are the blind spots for the main character or the main characters? What dynamics are playing out? What do they need to learn? What is happening for them with their intuition? How is their intuition showing up? How are synchronicities showing up for them? It just depends on what's happening, but it's always right in front of you, but you have to engage. This is one of the reasons why creativity is coming back. I mean, not that it ever left, but I mean, it kind of did. I feel like I don't feel like there's this renaissance. My guides say it's like a renaissance of creativity coming back where people are feeling called to be a lot more creative, and a lot of the creative spaces in the last however many years have turned into, it's not real art, in my opinion. It's like logic. It's like, this sounds good. This is a formula. This does well. There's a lot of low frequency stuff in movies, in film, and TV, in music, even books. Recently I've gone back to just reading all my favorite books from when I was younger, like Charlotte Bronte and Jane Austen. And I'm like, I want to read prose. I want to read poetry. I'm reading a lot of books now and I'm like, this isn't good. Like, they're just words. This is not real writing. It's not real art. And it's not that stuff is bad. There's always a time and a place for like education, for example. There's always a time and a place for logic. But what is creativity? Okay. When you feel inspired and you are writing a work of art, you are painting a work of art, you are creating a work of art through music itself, through film, like a real cinematic masterpiece. Do you know how that happens? That is all true creative expression. That is, I channeled this. I channeled it. When you channeled it, you are tapping into a vibration that needs to be grounded on this planet. You're tapping into a frequency transmission. And that's why it takes off. That's why it's so next level. And that's why a lot of people feel like a lot of the good stuff. I mean, I would be surprised if you disagree with me on this, but don't you think a lot of the better stuff was like before 2010, probably before 2000? Like, it just kind of gotten worse and worse overall. I'm not saying there's not great stuff still happening, but overall, we've lost a lot of real artistry and appreciation for real artistry. A lot of what's popular and mainstream, I don't think is real artistry. I think it's logic. I think it's coming from a mind's ego place instead of a real channeled place. And art back in the day was truly channeled. It was a true creative expression. It was people tapping into their divine essence, the divine essence source itself, and bring a frequency through, which is why it vibrationally activates us in a different way. It allows us to feel. It allows us to gain clarity. When you look at a piece of art, you don't even have to understand what it is, but it moves you in some way. I remember just looking, I was obsessed with Georgia O'Keeffe as a kid. Obsessed. And I just remember knowing as a kid, and Picasso, and I would just like look at this art again and again, and I was like, I'm literally can feel the cells in my body moving and healing. I don't even know what's happening, but I could feel it. And then I look at other art and I'm like, I don't feel anything here. And I'm obviously there's a subjectivity. I'm not talking about just liking something or not liking something. There's lots of stuff that in the creative space that isn't my taste. But I'm like, that's art. Like, someone channeled that. Like, it's a frequency. I might not resonate with it, but like, that was a real channeled work of art. And that's where all of the real codes lie. And that's why, for all of us individually, it's so important that we tap into our creative expression, because that's the stuff that's going to land. And I think that a lot of people are so used to receiving and creating, again, from a forced place, from the place of the mind or logic, or like, I want to create XYZ. So what do I think I like, versus allowing it to flow through them as a channeled transmission. When you do that, a lot of it doesn't make sense. When you do that, a lot of it is so genius and so perfectly put together. You're like, nobody could just sit there and try and force this out of them. Like, it just came through, right? You know that when you hear a song and it's like, you didn't think about that. You channeled that. You know the difference, right? And in film, I'm like, this is so intricately woven together in such a way, like, no one's smart enough to think this way. This was divine inspiration. And you're like, wow, that all fit together like a perfect puzzle piece. And that's real art. And it's what we need now more than ever before, because media is so saturated with things that are coming from that logical space, from that forced space. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying we need real creativity for us to feel and experience God frequency in a stronger way in our everyday lives, so that we can have that very grounded awareness that it's all around us all the time, right? And when you start to interact with your reality in this way, realizing that there are literally signs and codes in everything, you drop this belief that you're not connected. You drop this belief that you're not intuitive, because you are. Everybody has intuition. It comes through in different ways for different people, and even within yourself in different ways over time. But if you are telling yourself you're disconnected, it's not true. You are connected. You're always connected, and spirit is always trying to deliver something to you. It's not like nothing's moving, but you have to keep yourself open to receiving that, and be open to all the different ways, subtle, loud, small, big, whatever, that spirit's trying to talk to you. So when you get these urges to watch a movie, to listen to a song, to talk to somebody, you follow them. You don't judge them. You're like, oh, I don't have time. That seems like a waste of time. It doesn't align with my schedule. You're missing the code. Trying to give you the code. And also, when things pop in your reality that you didn't expect, you pay attention. When my phone randomly out of nowhere starts playing a podcast or starts playing a song that I didn't intend to click on, there's a reason. Spirit's like, hello, right? When I turn on my TV and a random thing starts playing, that happens all the time, there's a reason. It's getting set up. But if you want to receive more synchronicities and you want to be in constant communication with the universe, you have to take part in the conversation and engage in the conversation. If every time the universe is trying to talk to you in its way, you're like, this isn't significant. I don't know why that's playing. Let me change it. Why would the universe keep talking? So the more you engage and the more you appreciate and acknowledge and go into the significance of all of these different codes that you get through all forms of art, writing, books, TV, movies, music, fashion, whatever it is, when you say this is significant, I get the message, here it is, you are encouraging the conversation and it gets louder and louder and louder. But I promise you, it's all around you. So play with it. Ask for a movie, ask for a book, ask for a song, and let it sit, and then just see what comes up, whether that's through an urge or a vision or a dream, or someone else suggests it. They're like, I feel like watching this, and you happen to be in the room. Or there's going to be something that nudges it to you, whether you're initiating it or it's just coming to you and you're not expecting it. And then engage with it, journal on it, write about it, reflect on it, go back to it. I mean, I think I've watched Frozen how many times? 10,000, because I get a different message every time. I've watched Harry Potter how many times? 300,000, because I get a different message every time. There's so much to unravel in just like one page of a book. And we're so used to over consuming that I think we can really overlook the depth and the richness of all the codes in all of these pieces of art, when really you could take one movie and work with the themes and the codes and the messages, the spiritual guidance for the rest of your life. So slow down, notice what you've been excited about recently, and just lean all the way into it and trust and know, yes, it's significant. That movie is giving you a message. So if you have been getting any messages from movies or music, or books or any kind of art in that form, share. Let me know. I want to hear. Leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, or you can leave a comment on my Instagram post if you're listening to the podcast. But I think that really helps other people, because you might also be delivering a message for somebody else in the comments, where if they read your comment, like, wait, I should watch that. And there might be a code for them in that movie as well. But it's one of my favorite ways to interact with the universe. It reminds you that life is always synchronistic and that spirit's always talking to you. And remember, spirituality is supposed to be fun. That's the point. So I hope that this was helpful. Can't wait to hear what messages you are getting in your recent movies or music endeavors. I'll check them out too. And that's going to be it for today. So thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out with me today. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll chat with you again next time.